welcome to Crowdhouse. Crowdhouse is a live crowdfunding show where we bring companies and founders that are currently crowdfunding on stage in front of a group of judges. You're also a judge just by watching and being able to invest. So I don't know if you guys know about crowdfunding, but it is where accredited and non-accredited investors can invest live into companies, private companies. And so tonight we're bringing on Mycocycle, which is currently, they're currently raising on the Start Engine platform. So before we get into the content, before we get into the show, I wanted to introduce myself and the judges panel. And my name is Chandra Washington. I am the president and co-founder of TBC Capital. We provide on-demand CFO, strategic and advisory services to startups and small businesses. I'm also an emerging fund manager, previous tech investment banker, previous professional dancer. I have done it all. And now I'm here with you guys. So I want to take a little time to introduce the rest of the judges panel. The first person I'm introducing is Chris Moreno. He is a founding partner at the Real Estate Technology Fund and focused on supporting underestimated founders, especially women in BIPOC. Chris has invested in 120 plus startup founders and emerging fund managers. He has scaled 3 plus startups in the DTC, B2B, and logistics industries to profitability with 2 exits in the prop tech space. Thanks, Chris, for being here. We have Geof Cook. Geof Cook is a serial entrepreneur and has been on the board of the Meet Group since 2011 until its sale in 2020. He started his first company from a Harvard dorm and sold it for millions of dollars at the age of 24. He sold the second company for $100 million in 2011. Geof is currently the CEO and co-founder of the Meet Group, a social dating and live streaming company. So happy to have you here, Geof. The next person we have is Jaime Schmidt. Jaime is an entrepreneur and the founder of Schmidt's Naturals, a global brand of natural personal care products that she started in her kitchen in Portland, Oregon. Under her leadership, Schmidt's grew into a household name, lining the shelves of retailers including Target, Costco, Whole Foods, Walmart, CVS, in CVS across 30 countries. And in 2017, Schmidt's Naturals partnered with CPG giant Unilever, with Jaime continuing as the brand's as the brand's founder and spokesperson. Sorry about fumbling all over my words. Today, Jaime is the co-founder of Color Capital, an investment fund that specializes in the consumer products industry. Okay, so the next judge, I really love having Max on these shows, and I'll tell you why in a second. Max is the CEO and co-founder of Caribu, an interactive video calling platform that helps kids have virtual playdates with family and friends when they can't be physically together. Perfect for the pandemic. Caribu is one of Apple's 15 best apps of 2020, one of Time Magazine's best inventions, and the company has made Fast Company's list of world-changing ideas. Here's why I love to have Max. This first fact is amazing. Max has been the winner of or finalist in 30 plus pitch competitions, is the 59th Latina in the US to raise over $1 million in venture funding. And here it is, the first Latinx founder, male or female, to raise $1 million in equity crowdfunding. And she was named one of Inc. magazine's top 100 founders. So love having Max here for that. I love having all the judges, but when Max always says she was the first Latinx founder, male or female, to raise $1 million in equity crowdfunding, I always just give a little celebration to have her here. Okay, so again, this is Crowdhouse. How this will go, we'll have the founder of Mycocycle come on stage. She'll pitch her business. Then we'll do some Q&A from those on stage, but then also from those in the audience. I'm sure your questions will be answered. Again, you can go to startengine.com/Mycocycle to get more information on the company. I'm happy to have you guys here. I'm happy to have my judges here, and let's get into the show. Okay, Joanne, so now is the time where you're going to pitch your business. Are you ready?
Why not? Better now than never, right? So I'm Joanne Rodriguez, founder and CEO of Mycocycle. And I wonder if you've ever wondered about a world without trash. I'm here to talk about the latest ally in global plant based movement, fungi. Yep, mushrooms. We're going to talk about that tonight. And to be clear, fungi are neither a plant or an animal. Their functions are so outstanding that they stand in a class of their own. So, in the past few years, we've seen success in industries using mushrooms, plants, and other biotechnologies to replace petroleum in everything from fuels to plastics. And the plant based technologies are now replacing oil in some of the world's dirtiest sectors. While those approaches are bringing new plant based products to the world, at Mycocycle, we're focused on a different and even larger opportunity. Using our mushroom based technology, Mycocycle is working with some of the world's largest manufacturers to clean up their materials. Let me just take a minute to tell you about me, my experience, and what we believe at Mycocycle can make mushrooms help us achieve a world without waste. For decades, I worked in an industry that created the materials that went into the built environment space. Most of us are surprised to learn that the roof above you, the floor beneath you, and even the walls in your house contain materials manufactured with petrochemicals. Because of the toxic nature of the materials within the materials, like think about heavy metals and plastics and petroleum, they're rarely recycled or reused because it's been cost prohibitive. And for decades, the world's essentially relied on two methods of dealing with this, either burning it or dumping it. And this short sighted approach over time is contributing to human and environmental health issues and has reached a level of urgency in the US with landfills here at 85% capacity. So, collaborating with mycologist Peter McCoy, he authored Radical Mycology. We developed a patent pending process that would not only enable waste operators, manufacturers, and governments to remove the toxins from these waste materials, but it accomplishes what typically takes nature 400 years to achieve in just 4 weeks or less. So, in this new recycling economy, fungi are poised to have a huge impact. As the natural cleaners of our earth, they've been doing it for centuries without us. We're harnessing that technology to have them absorb the toxins that we typically relied on to create materials and products. But they're also capable of becoming the actual materials and products that they're cleaning. We're already seeing some of the world's largest companies like IKEA replacing the plastic-based styrofoam in their shipping materials to mushroom-based materials because they're biodegradable and more environmentally friendly. So at Mycocycle, we see our vision as twofold. And in our phase one efforts, we're focused on utilizing fungi to remediate what has become a global environmental problem, these overflowing landfills. Today, the landfills around the world are not only near capacity, but they've also become a huge source of environmental toxins, or leaching toxins into the soil and water. And what's happening are contaminated communities that sit near these areas. As a result, we are focused on transforming the $1 trillion waste management industry, and that's our initial market, from what has been an unsustainable model of business to one that really lends itself to a more circular and regenerative approach. Through the licensing of our process, we're able to free up valuable airspace, mitigate toxin risk, create new end use markets for the waste management industry. So, by training the mushrooms to eat asphalt and absorb petrochemical containing materials, we're using the science of mycology to create a more sustainable materials management practice. And in our bigger vision, Mycocycle will achieve a truly virtuous cycle as we employ the very mushrooms we use to clean up these materials to make brand new materials so they can clean and create. So imagine IKEA's packaging coming from your home remodeling project. Let's spend a moment though to understand about the versatility of mushrooms and what they're capable of without getting too technical. Our R&D and commercialization efforts are focused not on the cap of the mushroom, which you typically see, but on the root structure known as mycelium. These aren't the mushrooms you're going to want on your pizza. They're kind of the nerdy workhorse mushrooms that have been trained to do a job. And in use cases that we're developing with our customers right now, our process uses these roots, that's mycelium, to do the heavy lifting of cleaning up the toxins. Our mushrooms are remediators, and when they're applied to toxic materials, particularly those containing heavy carbons like petroleum, they absorb those toxins out of the materials, and what's left has little to no residual traces. They are truly one of the most elegant examples of nature at work. So thanks to our networks, our strong advisory board, our outreach efforts, we're seeing early customer adoption of our process. We're in conversations with multi-billion dollar multinational corporations that will really help us reach our goals of cleaning 1.5 million tons of trash by 2025. To date, we've been recognized by the United Nations, the EPA, NREL, and Fast Company's World Changing Idea Awards. But just last week, I had the great honor of being named to the inaugural Forbes Next 1000 list. Mycocycle is raising a seed round on Start Engine. It's an equity crowdfund platform. We love the idea of democratizing investments because we know it's going to extend our reach faster while reaching into communities that might be impacted the greatest. The initial financing is going to go to scaling our beta tests with our partners, fund the completion of our international patent filing, open our new lab space, which we move into March 1st, and hire the personnel to expand our business development and R&D capacity. So I always get asked, what is your unfair market advantage? I mean, we do have Mother Nature on our side, so that's one thing, but we also have decades and decades of proven science, as well as an incredible team of subject matter experts to move us forward in our growth strategy. We all work alongside our team of mushrooms to make this magic happen. So join us as we convert waste streams to value streams, help us see our vision through to create a world without waste. And I'm going to encourage you to invest in our campaign today.
So good, Joanne. Thank you so much for coming to Crowd House and pitching. So the next step would be to do the Q&A between the judges. So again, I want to remind everybody that if you want to hear more or you want to learn more about what Joanne and team are doing at Mycocycle, then you can go to startengine.com/Mycocycle. I know I'm saying the word incorrectly, Mycocycle, and it is linked in my bio, also in Joanne's bio, should be in Raul's bio, and it's spelled exactly like you see in the title here. So this portion is now the Q&A. So you heard Joanne talk about her business, and now is the investor Q&A. And you guys that are in the audience, I want you to listen carefully, because if you're thinking about investing, I want you to listen to the questions that the investors on stage are asking, but then also listen to how Joanne is answering those questions, and then make a decision for yourself. Do you want to invest? Do you not want to invest? And you can do that by going again to startengine.com/Mycocycle. So the first person I see on my list is Geof. You're first. I see you smiling, so you know you're up next. What two questions do you have for Joanne?
Yeah, great. Thank you. And thanks for that. You know, I'm a social entrepreneur, so fungi, all this time I've been saying fungi. And, you know, you clearly have a big vision. And, I applaud you on trying to make the world better with your productive time. So a question that I have, I'm kind of interested in the nuts and bolts. You know, I presume you have to have some containment to create this environment that can decompose this waste. Can you comment on that? Is it temperature controlled? How much does it cost? How big is it? So just more information on the containment is my first question.
For sure. We are in the concept development of this. We're in outside engineering on the tolerances of the mycelium, because it's an aerobic process. It needs to breathe. But essentially, we're taking what we do in the lab space to successfully execute in 4 weeks or less into modules that are already familiar within waste management. So we're using, I call it a Franken dumpster. We're modifying the equipment that's already in the industry and engineering it to be able to meet the same type of protocols that we've already established, so we can guarantee success.
Got it. And thank you. And my second question is, you know, obviously this is carbon footprint reducing, and that's great. Can you comment on the carbon footprint of the containment itself? I assume it has to run some refrigeration or some climate control, and also on the process of harvesting the fungi. So, like, can you, after assuming that you have to harvest the fungi, then you also have to contain. Can you talk about kind of the delta for the net footprint, the net carbon footprint that you're reducing?
In terms of the carbon footprint of the container, it's really an imperative for us to create, I guess the best way to think of it is a climate agnostic vessel. So similar to using intermodal containers that are insulated for year-round growing for urban ag. We want to be able to offer an autonomous vessel, so integrating some solar and leachate treatment and recapture. So really some bolt-on technology. We've got some great concepts in development around this, so we can offer conditioned airspace regardless of climate or treatment. So that's important to us. In terms of uh, the climate delta of these waste streams, there's 483 million tons of construction and demolition waste going to landfill, and that's a 2012 number from the EPA. But really, I mean, the energy reduction on that is equivalent to about 80 million barrels of fuel that's not being produced if we're able to take that out of there. And the greenhouse gas release related to the landfill activities are rather significant. And so we're really impacting all of those areas. But until we get that vessel developed, I mean, that may not be the first gen, right? That might be the third or fourth gen, but those are the engineering tolerances that we're working in to try to make climate agnostic and kind of grid independent solution set.
All right. Thank you, Joanne. And thank you, Geof, for your questions. You know, we'll always come back because I'm sure you have more. Jaime, you are up next.
Thanks for the pitch, Joanne. Couple questions that are top of mind for me are one, I'd love to hear about the potential for opportunities for customers, the opportunity for direct to consumer, because the B2B offering is pretty clear from your pitch, and curious about
So
customer
B2C
opportunity.
is an interesting B2C is an interesting idea for us. I mean, I feel like we could have so many ideas that we never get one done. So we're trying to hone in, and actually we could get to a B2C solution quicker rather than later in the first iteration of this containment. That's going to show us a great deal. I mean, wouldn't it be great if you could just buy packaging with some inoculant at Home Depot, apply it and create a soil-like biomass to put into your garden. We've had these conversations, and it's also been in consideration from tiny house builders and naturalists. So, I mean, I think anything is possible. That's not been our central focus, but it certainly is an area of interest to be more consumer facing.
Thanks. Also curious about the competitive landscape. What does that look like? Who's doing this already?
Well, globally, I mean, mushroom tech's kind of hot. There's been probably in the last 12 to 18 months, well over $75 million in investment, a lot of it in the protein-free plant-based area. But Ecovative's one of the tried and true. They've been at this for about 12 years in the US. They are all around the packaging segment where they're creating mycelium from agricultural waste. But they're not really talking about this dynamic of remediating waste from landfills kind of as a resource. So we're really looking at lessening that burden on a front line, and no matter if we see them as competitive or not, they're also an opportunity, right? Because we could start to feed them with our remediated byproducts to create new materials within their packaging. So if we look all across the landscape of competition from mushroom-based or mycelium-based producers, we sit in a pretty key position with our technology.
All right. Thank you so much, Jaime, for your questions. As always, we'll come back around. I'm sure you have more. And actually, those are actually really, really good and interesting. Chris, what 2 questions do you have for Joanne?
Great. Joanne, I'm really excited about what you're doing in this space because it lines up with what we focus on, which is real estate tech. So I'm kind of curious, having been in the space like 11 years, knowing how hard it is for new technology to be adopted by this industry, right? And by these players. It's a massive market. I think you've got so many great opportunities, but take me through the ROI. Have you gone through either with the ROI, how you're going to get traction from these big developers, suppliers who you're planning to work with? Is it going to be more of a partnership? Is it going to be more of you actually creating your own materials yourself? I guess if you could share that.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, it's kind of a little long-term, short-term, and then whatever comes first. So, to be candid, we've had huge interest in the roofing industry, which is where I come from. I have a great deal of support there. And so those asphalt-based manufacturers know that they're being faced with forward-facing issues related to manufacturing with petroleum-based materials. So I'm already engaged under NDAs, so I can't say who they are, but they're multi-billion-dollar global entities that have already presented themselves to understand the value of recycling, say, plastic bottles into new materials. So we're also working with SBR Chrome Rubber, so not just asphalt-based materials, but rubber-based materials. These present about 1 billion ton a year liability for manufacturing. And we're working interdivisional with a particular manufacturer, also under non-disclosure, to create new products. So it's less about mitigating the toxins, but the creation of new material opportunities. When it comes to waste management, I don't want to say they're not bullish, but they don't have to change. They're making plenty of money doing what they're doing. But the reality is, for them, it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution. Nebraska doesn't need us, neither does Louisiana or Texas. Their prices to dispose of the waste are dirt cheap. But if you get into the Northeast, the East Coast, the Northwest, California, and other parts of the country where they have wholesale bans on certain toxins, certain materials, or the rates to dispose of your waste are so accelerated that we're the only solution, or that they've run out of room, we become a really viable option for them. And even greater than that is the level of interest and opportunity in the EU. And so we're already in discussions about expansion to those markets as well.
Great. And so my second question was around, you talked about your secret sauce, and I'm always curious about that competition. So what's to stop Waste Management from going and doing it themselves, or some of these other big players? What keeps them from taking? I know you talked about patents, so if you could kind of share that the challenger aspect of it.
I suppose at the end of the day, if I'm just being honest, nothing keeps anybody from infringing on a patent, right? And so it does become very much an accelerated pace to be first to market and be the first to do it. That sometimes puts a target on your back as well, and I'm aware of that. The reality is it's an interdisciplinary background, and you have to have the right people who understand this segment and understand the manipulation of these materials and how they act, and to be able to create black boxes within the technology as well. And so we're really cognizant of that. I would never sit here and say, well, yeah, Waste Management's not going to go out and do that. But I would also say that if it was easy enough to do, it would have already been done. They have a lot of money, right? So I don't want to discount that, and I don't dismiss it. I'm just very candid about it. I can't stop people from coming at me other than to say we have a bandwidth of expertise that perhaps they don't.
All right. Thank you so much, Joanne, and thank you, Chris, for the questions, and thank you, Joanne, for the answers. All right. So I just want to reset the room really quickly. So if you are listening to Crowdhouse, and what we do at Crowdhouse is we bring companies that are currently crowdfunding, and we allow them to pitch live to investors, but then also folks that are in the audience. And you guys that are listening, you can go to startengine.com/Mycocycle. Spelled exactly like it is in the title. And if you're interested in investing or learning more about the company, you can go there to learn all of the things that Joanne has made public, but then you can also invest directly. So I do want to also let you guys know that the whole point of the show is so that investors like yourselves can hear from founders, and then regardless of whether you're accredited or non-accredited, you can go directly to startengine.com/Mycocycle and invest directly into Joanne and the Mycocycle team. So right now we're doing Q&A from the judges, and then we're going to do Q&A from the audience. However, and I should have said this earlier, Q&A will be via Twitter. So if you guys have any questions, please tweet us. I should have said this earlier, so we can have some questions for Joanne. Obviously, I know the folks on stage have more questions for her. So as the questions are coming in, guys, I'll come back around to you because I know I only gave you 2 questions. But if you are in the audience and you're like, man, this is really interesting, but I don't understand this, please use the hashtag Crowdhouse. There's also someone in the audience named Brandon Brooks. He is also taking questions. So you can tweet him directly if you have any questions, and then also use the hashtag Crowdhouse. And we'll pick your questions and we will ask Joanne those after our next judge goes. And so Max, you're gonna round us out for this first round of questions. What questions do you have for Joanne?
All right, so I just wanna say something first before I ask my questions, which is, there's a study that was done on women founders and how they get prevention questions versus promotion questions. And so I always am trying to be thoughtful when I'm asking questions as a judge of a woman founder to make sure that I'm asking promotion questions and not prevention questions, especially because you're very early. So just wanted the audience to also feel free to look at this HBR article and think of your questions in a promotional way. So my first question is, what major milestones are you targeting in the next 12 months?
Well, I want to thank you, Max, for asking promotion questions. I did see that article and I'm super aware of it. Doesn't always surprise me, having worked in a male-dominated industry for so many years. So I will say that the milestones we're striving for is the completion of our international patent. That'll happen regardless of the raise. Those are funds already committed and happening. One of the other milestones that we actually already achieved was just getting our international trademark issued. We're still waiting on our US trademark. The other big deal that happened for us, and I don't want to front load our first quarter with all of our milestones, but getting into our office space, that's a big deal to have a lab expansion and be based here in the Midwest. And now I'm on the market to hire some additional mycologists. So, I mean, these are key for us. Milestones are important to show the progress. We've also seen about a 70% increase in proposals being written. And some of the goals that we had set for 2020, we weren't able to get done, but we are kind of working in double time to get those done this year.
And are there any quantitative goals and milestones that you're going after for 2020? Because a lot of those that you mentioned were kind of like moving into an office space or getting a patent approved, but and again, I know that your process takes a little bit longer than most, but is there something that could be produced or shipped or sold with an LOI by the end of 2021?
Yeah, we're definitely looking to deliver revenues and sales this year. We're looking to deliver a decentralized waste management solution through a containment vessel. What does that look like? That yet to be seen, but I believe we can get this done by June 1 with full-scale betas. I mean, we're talking 40-yard dumpster loads of waste. We had forecasted in 2020 a pretty aggressive number. I don't want to put it out there because I don't want to put a forward-facing number, but I don't see any reason why we can't get there. Our metrics are a little bit differently because these deals are development deals and they're licensing plays. And so we're working through moving parts in concert with these partners. I'd also like to see us through to have at least 5 manufacturers that we're working with before the end of this year, which is part of our strategic planning. And I think we'll be able to get there.
Awesome. And since that was kind of a follow-up to the first question, my second question is, I'd love to hear more about you and your team and some of the like kind of places that they've worked or the achievements that they've had and that you've had that makes you the team to bet on.
Well, I don't love talking about me, but I'll just say my greatest achievement are my daughters, my husband, my daughters. My daughters are doing really well, and I'm trying to set a strong example for that. And I'm sure that sounds really cheesy, but it's just the truth. I look at them, I'm very proud of what they're accomplishing as strong young women moving forward in this kind of environment. I've got 30 years of experience in construction products and materials, and over 16 of those, I was leading sales for a commercial roofing company, as well as sustainability efforts. And in that, I was able to participate in very high level convenings with Clinton Global Initiative, National League of Cities, US Conference of Mayors. I sit on a board for the US Green Building Council currently. So I'm very active and engaged with who might be our client set moving forward and some of our top early adopters. In terms of my team, Peter McCoy, he has been practicing mycology for close to 20 years. He founded the Radical Mycology Project. He was an advisor on the Amazon Renewal Project. His book, Radical Mycology, is like an 800-page manifesto to mushrooms, and it is one of the definitive sources globally to go to. Raul Rosas, who's in the room, not on the Zoom, he is our Director of Operations and Finance. He's also the Director of the Latinx Incubator at 1871. And that was my first experience in startup world, right? Because business world is not the same as startup world. And so I did my first incubator at 1871. I won the Latinx Showcase. And yeah, it's great how those networks really kind of work and have staying power. And then Leslie Lopes, and she's in the audience listening. She's a little shyer, but she is our Director of Branding and Marketing. And she has been doing a great job even outside of that in strategic development. She's a very good critical thinker and has been leading the charge on our containment to get us to the CD stage that we're on now. I have a deep bench of advisory board members. I could just talk for hours about them, but let's just say Rubicon Global, who was a unicorn in their own right. We've got their National Director of Construction and Demolition Waste, AMP Robotics, who's driving AI in robotics and waste management. I've got their VP of Director of Development. And so we're represented by all facets of the industry we serve.
All right, thank you so much, Max and Joanne, for that. So again, this is Crowd House, in which we bring companies that are currently fundraising live on a crowdfunding platform here for you guys to listen to ask questions, and to hopefully decide to invest. And you can invest in Mycocycle by going to startengine.com/Mycocycle. It's spelled exactly like it is in the title. And so I'm going to go round robin again for those that are on stage. I know I usually give you one question or two questions, and I know that's not enough. So I'm going to give you the floor to ask one more question each, and then we'll move to the next section. So Geof, what is your one other question for Joanne?
Sure. I guess my question is around the confidence level that the mushrooms, are that break down these toxic materials. Are they toxic, once they break it down? And relatedly, how can you be sure? Is there anything that suggests that they remove, I guess whatever percentage is high enough? It's probably less than 100% of that toxicity.
Good questions. We're sure because we're testing the parent material and then we're testing post-remediation. But in terms of what might be retained in the mycelium, the easiest way to describe it that I think everybody gets is going back to concepts of photosynthesis, where we're processing what, in a cycle. And that's essentially what the mycelium does, the mushrooms do. They uptake and absorb this, and they process these multi-ring hydrocarbons, so benzo, pyrene, and phthalates. DPH, is a bad actor, and they neutralize them to a more simple form. those are gone, relatively speaking. I mean, our tests have us at 100% across some of them because these are huge classes of chemicals. But most of them have been upwards of 88% or better. The heavy metals we can never make go away. That will be something that we'll have to deal with for sure. Fortunately, the materials we're dealing with currently, they're in trace amounts anyways. So what was there is still there. It's just distributed. And most likely it's going to be sourced from whatever goes into the new material, whether it's being provided by us or somebody else.
All right, thank you, Geof, for that. Jaime, one more question for Joanne.
Joanne, you have a lot of plans for the money. Beta testing, patent filing, building out a lab. I want to know, is this fundraise going to be enough for you? And, kind of what are your priorities there for spending?
My priority really is the beta. We had some of the funding going into this allocated for the patent filing anyway, so it kind of gets lumped in there. Maybe allows us to consider more countries to file in if that makes business sense ultimately. But really it's about getting the beta scaled. We know until we do it to scale, there's always going to be some element of question like, can this happen? So is the money going to be enough? We're raising up to $945 on the platform that I can disclose because it's on the platform, but we're reserving a portion off the platform for strategic partners and investments. That would be maybe come in a different way. And we think that that will be important for us as we scale. And I might be a traditionalist. It doesn't mean that I don't believe in, venture capital funding and all of that, but I'd really like for us to see the organic revenues. So use this money wisely so we're scaling and growing with our customers, and we're not necessarily having to continue to go out for rounds of investment until we potentially take on maybe manufacturing. And that was one of the points that Chris was making that I didn't get to, was would we ever consider manufacturing? Absolutely. We would love to treat it and then eat it, like feed ourselves from a supply. So big picture, yes. And again, there's a lot of things that we can go after. We just want to stay really focused. So to your point, scaling that beta is number one.
All right, thanks so much for that, Joanne and Jaime. Chris, you have, well, before you go, so guys, if you have questions for Joanne and Raul of Mycocycle, then please tweet using the hashtag Crowdhouse. There's someone in the audience named Brandon Brooks as well. You can tweet him. Whatever your questions are, we want to be able to answer them. If you're thinking about investing in Mycocycle, you can go to startengine.com/Mycocycle, and all the information is there, and you can invest directly into the company there as well. I hope you guys are enjoying the questions that have been asked so far, and that it's giving you more insight into the company, because that is the entire point of the show. Okay, so again, if you have questions, you can definitely tweet us or send a DM. And then Chris and Max, what other questions do you have for Joanne?
Great. So, I think you've answered quite a few. Again, I get really excited about things like this that are the future of development, the future of real estate. And I think you hit on something that you already kind of answered. And I want to dig a little bit deeper around, you talked about the Green Building Council, right? I'm active like ULI and the International Architects Association. And they are the ones who really determine a lot of times what gets spec'd into a project. And they're looking at LEED, right? They're looking at points, and very similar to GM or Tesla or other companies saying, we're going electric or we're getting off of this by X date. Do you see that as the future, from your knowledge of the industry, of where these companies are going to say, hey, we are going to get away from this and we are going to move into, I'm sorry if I hear myself, but we're going to get into away from these toxic products and move fully into this? And when do you see that happening? Does that become like almost this tax or these credits that you could sell or work with?
Good question. It's already happening. So There's EPDs and HPDs. So these are environmental product declarations and health product declarations. That has come about within the last 8 to 10 years. The International Living Futures Institute was a big driver of this. I happened to sat on the EPA panel that helped determine the environmentally preferred purchasing standards. Bio-based is a very competitive advantage for manufacturers. And for the American Institute of Architects, as well as USGBC, they're really hyper focused on this conversation around resiliency and how do we create infrastructure and cities of the future that help us curtail climate change and mitigate losses due to climatic events. And what we do with our buildings and our waste streams is part of that conversation. The AIA has signed on to a carbon agreement for 2030, very much paralleling the Paris Agreement. So it's happening in real time. I think we're really at a great place for this. We are going to see an accelerant 10 times because of the administration that's in place right now, getting back into the Paris Accord. So that we're already seeing a bump from that.
Max, what question? I'll give you guys. I'm going to give you guys more questions if you have more, and then we're gonna close this out. So, Max, what questions do you have for Joanne?
Okay, so the first question I want to start with is, I loved that you were very focused. I feel like it's so hard as an early stage founder to focus, and you were like, there's states that don't need us, and then there are states that do. What is one of the things that you said was that, can you give me a little bit more on the, like, what are those qualifications for a state or some kind of municipality that needs you versus a place that doesn't?
Such a great question. So I would say, one, I look at the tipping fees. That's how much it costs to dispose of your waste, right? And so if the national average sits around $63 a ton, it fluctuates. We're sitting right at that same price point for our treatment. But what we really look at are accelerators. And so this goes back to this conversation with Chris about these climatic events that impact regions. And I'll use the Southeast because I don't want to pick on Texas right now. They're going through a horrible tragedy. But as a result of that, they have a lot of scrap happening, right? You have homes that are getting flooded. So let's talk about the Carolinas and Hurricane Hugo. Their landfills, so this is really kind of unsexy talk, but their landfills at the time probably had 60 years of landfill space left when Hurricane Hugo hit. After they just rapidly cleaned up all of that debris from all of these buildings and all of these events, what happened is they collapsed what they had from 60 years down to 20 years. Right. So these are mitigating factors out of their control. And how powerful would it be for me to go to them and say, hey, okay, you've only got this much left. Let us employ us to take some of these voluminous waste streams that are sitting in your landfills for 400 years and let us at least create a beneficial biomass, a soil, something that could even be used just as clean fill. I mean, even if that's all we did, we're still really doing a great service.
That's like so amazing. Sorry.
Max, you're loving it.
I don't think I've ever been so excited about a waste conversation. So interesting.
I love that. Okay, so I will open it up to the floor. We're going to get out of here early. I love this. I'll open it up. I'll give you guys an opportunity to ask any other questions you have. And then we're going to ask the big question, which is who on stage will be investing in Mycocycle? if you're in the audience and you're listening, you've been here for a while. If you have questions, you can raise your hand. We'll bring you on stage. And also, you can also tweet your questions to me. You can DM me or use the hashtag Crowdhouse. And then if you have questions, we'll bring you up. If not, go to startengine.com/Mycocycle and you can invest there or get all the information you want. So I'm opening it up to the floor. If there's anybody that has any burning questions, please come off mute, ask Joanne the questions, and then we're going to go directly into whether this is something that you'll be investing in or not.
You might have touched on this, sorry if I missed it, but what's the minimum investment amount?
Minimum investment was $265. We kept it low because, again, what would be the point of doing a crowdfund platform if we couldn't really engage all the people everywhere? So we kept it low.
Yeah, just a quick question on the business model. The unit that you're selling, is it that you're selling containment units, hours of processing time, amounts of fungi? What is it that you think the unit is that you'll be selling to, let's say, the B2B in the B2B model?
We have multiple revenue streams. So hardware and setup is certainly one of them, which would be the containment, but licensing know-how and royalties from product development, as well as then per ton treatment of inoculate, so the fungal inoculate. So if you think about the IBM model, the hardware is the machine and our fungal inoculate is the toner and the paper.
I'm very interested in this from the standpoint of, as you said, like moving forward, right? But I'm even more excited, like you talked about, of what's already happened, the problems that already exist that, going in there. And I feel like that market is massive, right? If we're building, let's say we're building another 300,000 units a year in the United States. Well, there's already 20 million units of apartment or residential buildings, plus everything else, streets, roads, et cetera. So I wanted to hear kind of your thoughts around, I'm almost thinking like WALL-E in the movie, right? When he goes back, he's still on the planet, still trying to clean up and still work hard to bring the humans back to the planet Earth and clean up. So I'm curious to hear, like, as if you talked about these different avenues, is that the bigger avenue to go after and to figure out, but is that the hardest? Like, how do you get to that deep stuff that's in the ground, or that deep stuff that is covered up or just so massive? I mean, I think this truly is $1 trillion market. So I'm really curious to hear your thoughts around, the quick win versus the biggest challenge out there.
So I think I talked in terms of kind of the focus quick win. I think the biggest challenge really would be, I talked to the Terwilliger Center. I can't say it ever. It's the kind of the venturing and not-for-profit arm of not-for-profit Habitat for Humanity, right? So they have an innovation center that tries to bring technologies to developing nations to impact affordable housing, but an extension of that is the impact that construction and demolition activities has on the environment, and how do they lessen that. So I just had a conversation with them yesterday about this, and how to maybe go into markets where they don't have landfills, like Mexico. They're building out a landfill structure now. They burn their trash right now. But why not incorporate us from day one, and why not let us mine some of what's just sitting there open? And we don't even have to go to those countries, like go to a Mexico or go to Southeast Asia or go to Philippines or go to island nations where the resources are finite. We have examples of open dumping here in the US. And one of them is in South Dallas, where they had Shingle Mountain. They had like a 6-story dump of shingles, and in less than a year it contaminated the entire community around them. That's a whole nother story, but you could look it up. And that's happening in real time as well. So there are these cases everywhere where we could absolutely start to mine, as you're suggesting, Chris, some of these waste streams. And I think, island nations, nations that have a huge amount of industrialization, those are our targets. Big picture.
All right, so we have come to the end of Crowdhouse. you guys don't have any more questions, do you? I just want to make sure. All right, so now is the time where we find out who will be investing in Mycocycle. And again, if you're in the audience, you can go to startengine.com/Mycocycle and see all of the things that Joanne talked about. She has her Reg CF and all of the paperwork that she had to file. So there's all types of information there. But you could also invest there as well. If you love what Joanne has talked about, if you love the mission that they're on, you can definitely go in and invest on startengine.com/Mycocycle. So how this works is I will go around the room and find out who will be investing in Mycocycle. And so Chris, I'm going to go to you first. Will you be investing in Mycocycle?
All right, Joanne, this has been really cool to hear. And, I'm very excited about it. But that being said, I have some good news and some bad news. So I think the good news is you've got, like the social impact, right? For sure, that this can improve our planet, can help. There's a massive scale here. There's so many areas you can go after. And I think that's what I want to get clear on myself, and maybe spend more time on a future conversation of understanding, what it looks like. Because I think it can be, as you said, long tail for some things, shorter time for others. I think, the next piece is you definitely have the team and the credentials to get this done, right? If it's the right thing to get done and you can accomplish it. So I think this can absolutely be game changing. It's such a big, massive audience. The people I know, our LPs, for instance, are developers and owners. And if this were to work, they could roll this out. So the good news is I am going to be investing personally, and I'd like to take it to our LPs and we have a group of about 100 plus real estate developers, owners, founders and I'd love to take it to them, to a group, a private conversation. But the bad news is if and when you're successful, you're going to put a lot of toxic companies out of business and really hurt, they're going to have to find jobs or come work for you. So that's the bad news.
We like to hire good talent. So, our doors are open, we're open and receiving, and you can absolutely send them our way. Thanks so much, Chris. That's awesome.
All right. So the next person I have on my screen is Max. You were already ready. Will you be investing in Mycocycle?
I was just unmuting because Chris was so dramatic about that. That was telenovela style, like I've never seen before. That was amazing. I was like, what is the bad news? Tell me who died. Are they coming back? Okay. All right. So Joanne, I am usually I don't usually invest on Crowdhouse because I get really picky about who I invest in. And I have to say, and Brandon called it. Brandon's been tweeting. Brandon was watching my face. I am so excited to invest. I don't usually invest this early because it's still an idea, but I am so inspired by you personally, you and your daughters. Your husband sounds great, but you and your daughters. I'm so inspired by the team you've built. It's a diverse team, and everyone on Crowdhouse knows that's super important to me. I think you also have realistic milestones. I think a lot of times we want founders to have a hockey stick up and to the right. We're going to crush it. We're going to have billions of dollars of revenue in 2 weeks. And it's so unrealistic. And it's so refreshing to hear you say I need an office. I need to hire some people. I need some patents. And I was like, you know what? You do. And you need money for that. And I'd love to help you on that. And I think you have a really focused rollout plan. Again, you're not trying to bite off more than you can chew. You're being really thoughtful about the criteria for where you want to attack first, which is so the Pareto, right? You really want to be so focused and have bigger impact. I think you're thoughtful about your competitors too, right? You really, you're just I'm going to get first to market. I'm going to do this. And if they want to be behind me, that's super cool. But apparently they're really not even thinking about this. And I think it gives you a really good opportunity in the future for exit options, right? You can grow this really big, or you have the opportunity because you were first and because you were so thoughtful about it to just get acquired by one of those bigger companies. And you understand the speed to market. You've also paired yourself, with an expert in this space on the science side, but you're an expert in this space on the sales side and the community side and the kind of just like the need side, which I think is right. So someone's building the need side and someone's building the solution side. So I'm so impressed in so many ways and so excited to be one of your partners.
Max, thank you. I mean, that means the world. It really does. I think sometimes we overlook business practice coming into the startup. So maybe we have such a solution set, but organizationally, we might not have those foundations set. And so I've always really been mindful to grow this with intention, because if we don't have a solid foundation, we're going to collapse under the weight of what's to come. And we have a lot headed our way. And so I appreciate your kind words as well as your support and investment. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm loving this. Max is a tough cookie. So Joanne, you really cracked the nut there. Okay, so Jaime, will you be investing in Mycocycle?
Well, Chris and Max couldn't have said it better. I think they've really given a beautiful overview of your potential, Joanne. It's a little early for me. And I generally like to see, some revenue traction and proof of concept, but I think that's the beautiful thing about crowdfunding and, raising through equity crowdfunding, is that we can make those decisions and jump in without having, a whole lot of money behind it, and kind of ease in. So I'm comfortable making the minimum right now and then watching you grow and cheering you on and potentially adding more later. So thank you for your beautiful pitch, and I'm excited to watch this grow.
Thank you, Jaime. There are no small investments. We'll take them all. So I appreciate your support, and the proof is in doing, and I look forward to proving to you.
Awesome.
Geof, you are our last person. Will you be investing in Joanne and Mycocycle?
Yeah, so I appreciate the candor. It sounds like virtually everything you're doing is blazing a new trail. I think over time, of course, questions on the containment, the safety, but I think I also understand that you're in such a early stage and such a huge space that I think you convinced me for sure this is an important problem, that you have a unique angle on it. And I agree with Jaime and the others that that is the purpose of crowdfunding, pushing forward exactly these types of projects, so that you can prove these things that we're asking about. So yes, I am going to invest.
Yes, I'm
4 for 4, Joanne. Amazing.
I mean, this is outstanding. Geof, thank you. Max, Chris, Jaime, and really I want to say thank you to Chandra for hosting this. I mean, I think that you put crowdfunding and democratizing investment right at the forefront where it needs to be. This can't be something snubbed or looked down on, and we need to allow for people of all walks to be able to make investments and to understand what their financial future can be. So I completely applaud you, and I thank you all for giving me the time today and for supporting me and trusting us with this vision.
When was, I think the last time all judges invested was also a woman founder of color?
Absolutely, yes. B, Law, and everybody loved her, and like they're still in the DMs talking about how much they loved B. So like,
I'm just saying, I just wanted to bring it up. It's just such an interesting piece of information. Like, who knew?
Max always comes with the diversity talk. Like, I love it. Okay, so to close this thing out, 1, thank you, Joanne, for your kind words. 2, thank you, Max, for that reminder. And 3, thank you to everybody on stage. If you guys, again, are interested in investing in Mycocycle, you can go to startengine.com/Mycocycle. It'll be in the title. You can learn how to spell the word using the title. And then again, we're coming back next month with some fun new shows for Crowdhouse. We come on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. And I want to say thank you for those that are still in the room listening. Thank you to my folks that are on stage. Thank you, Joanne, so much. Congratulations. And we will see you guys next week. Thanks, guys. Thanks for everything.